Okay, so let's take a look at how to recreate some of the examples. First, let's launch the LabVIEW application. And LabVIEW 2016 32-bit. Here it is. Opens up with this screen that gives you opportunities to go to some links to learn more about LabVIEW and to find some helpful resources. I'll leave that right now. Click to Show on Launch. If you want to not see this welcome message, easy enough, unclick that and then close it. But again, I will leave it turned on for now because I might just look at that another time. Close that. Here we are in LabVIEW 2016. This is our opening screen. Let's create a blank VI. Blank virtual instrument comes open. And recall that we can do a Control E to switch between the front panel and the block diagram, or we can do a Control T. I'll go ahead and do that on my keyboard right now. Brings those up side by side. And here we are with the block diagram on the right and the front panel on the left. So what can we do with that? Well, we need some numeric inputs. So let's go to the front panel first. And we need to bring up the controls palette. So I just right-clicked and I can pin this. Here's my controls palette with all the things that can go onto the front panel. I need some numeric indicators and some numeric controls. So let's go under numeric. Notice, sorry, let me close this. Notice that you have a bunch of different options here. Let's go to modern control type. Let's go to numeric. Here's a numeric control. That's going to be our input numbers. I'll just go ahead and drag that guy right up here, and I will give it the name that's in the example. I'll just call it A. So it's data input A. Let's bring in another one right here. Actually, let's purposely misalign them. I'll call this guy B. So I now have two numeric controls that are going to allow us to put numbers into the program. Let's do this. Let's align them. I just draw a box around them. Then up here on the toolbar, I want to go to the Align option, and I can align their left sides or their centers. There we go. Let's just align their centers. Now they are nice, aesthetic, pleasing, lined up numeric control boxes. Meanwhile, what's happened on the block diagram? Well, if you want to align those, you can as well, but I'll just drag them around just for the fun of it. Those are the two numeric controls. How can we tell that they correspond to each other? A couple of different ways. I can double-click it on the front panel, and it highlights within the block diagram. Try that again. Double-click on the front panel. Watch the block diagram as I double-click this repeatedly. And then let me double-click the other guy. There's B. What's that other thing that's blinking? Well, the controls palette is showing up here. Let me get rid of that so it doesn't do all that annoying blinking. And here's input A, and here is input B. We next need to bring in something to indicate the sum and the difference according to our example. Let's just bring in a couple of numeric indicators right there, and let's name that A plus B. I just began typing. The label was already highlighted, so I could just type in a new label. Dragging and dropping another numeric indicator. We'll call this A minus B. Okay, so there's our second indicator. Well, does it work? Not yet. We need more programming. Would it run? Let's try it. How do we run it? Well, we can run it one time by hitting the white arrow button, either here in the front panel or here in the block diagram. Or I can hit the Run Continuous. Let me go ahead and hit the Run Continuous button. Okay, those buttons have darkened. The red Stop button has become available. That is, it's no longer grayed out. So that means my program is running. Well, okay, I see 0 and 0 for the inputs, and I see 0 as the outputs. That's mathematically correct. Let's try some different numbers. Put in a 12. Uh-oh, I put in a 12 for A. Nothing else has changed, which verifies the notion that there is no programming, so it's really not doing anything yet. Let's stop the program. Let's add some programming. How do I get that functions palette back up? Let me just right-click and pin that guy. It actually had not unpinned itself. It just moved to the other monitor. I'm using two video monitors, and it's moving things around the screen for me a bit here. So let's work from this functions palette now that's on my screen. What I need is one to do the addition to give us this sum output. So let's look for a numeric function. Here's the add function. We just go ahead and drag that in right here. And easy enough, I just bring my cursor to the top terminal and then just drag a line to the a numeric control output. And then we can actually do it in the opposite direction. I can either start at the add instruction, bring my cursor up to that sweet spot, waiting for that terminal to appear. Come on, terminal, appear. There we go, terminal appears, and I can drag another line over to the B, or I can start at the B output. And in this case, I don't have to hold the mouse button. I just left-clicked. Actually, anytime you're dragging wires, you can do that. Just left-click, and that begins the wire. And then find your destination, left-click again. It then makes the connection. And I then connect that sum to the indicator. Let's try to align these a little bit better here. Okay, so this should work. I don't have the difference output wired yet. I do have the sum output wired. I could test this. Actually, it's not a bad idea to test programs in stages. So let's go ahead and hit the Run Continuous button. And I see the product, actually the sum is working. 12 plus 0 is 12. Let's try a different number. 39. 39 plus 12, is that 51? Yes, it is. Obviously, A minus B is not reflecting the correct result because it's not yet been programmed. We need to add the subtract instruction to make that program work. Can we add it while it's running? Let's find out together. Here's the functions. Let's bring in the subtract instruction. Uh-oh. It's not letting me. So I do have to stop the program before I can make editing changes. Bring in a subtract instruction. Let's just drag those guys together here. And I can tie it to right here. Whoops, I say I can. It doesn't like something. What doesn't it like? Let me rest my cursor, and a little pop-up says, this wire connects one or more data sinks but has no source. That's not a good sign. Let's Control B to get rid of that broken wire. Let's try that again. Drag a wire right up here. There we go, now it connected. I just mismoused somewhere along the way. Let's drag a wire over here to this other guy, and that connected just fine. So let's test it. Let's run continuously. 12 plus 39 is 51, just like before. So there's our sum output and the difference output. 12 minus 39, is that minus 27? Yes, I believe it is. About 0 minus 39. Let's pick an easy solution. 0 minus 39 is negative 39. So this all works fine. We get the sum and the difference of whatever numbers we input to A and B. And oh, by the way, you can also use these. I believe they're called twirlers. I'm just clicking those little button-looking things to increment up, increment down. How big can the number get? Probably bigger than I currently have here. So, wow, it's a pretty big number. It scrolled off the screen. If you're going to be working with big numbers, it makes sense that you might want to resize this. Oh my. Resize this guy too. Huh. I guess I must have hit 7 quite a few times there. Let's go ahead and run this. Let's try something smaller. Maybe just a number of 8s here. And then, okay, it turned it into scientific notation anyway. So there's the result. At any rate, this works just fine. Does undo work? Yes, it does. It is probably in the edit function. Undo, data change, and probably Control Z works as well. So Control Z lets me resize those. Let me go back to what we had before. And let's run this program. And there, back to what we had before, and it's working just fine. So that was our first example. Let me double check and make sure. Yes, it looks just like the example on paper that was handed out in class. Let's save this. File, save as. I think I'll just save it to the desktop just for the fun of it. Desktop. We're going to call this temporary so that I know enough to get rid of it later. We'll call it temp LabVIEW 1, example 1. It's going to save it as a VI, and there it is, it's saved. I can now clear that and create a new one. Let's do this. Let's bring the front panel and the block diagram over. Let's Control T to relocate those a little bit. And look at the second example. Second example also has numeric control or 2. Let's see, what's this one called? Called A again. And then we'll bring in B. And then we need a Boolean switch. How about a Boolean right here? Try to find a switch that looks like in the example a vertical toggle switch. There we go. There's a sweet spot somewhere here to resize these guys. There we go. I can make it bigger in that dimension and also in this dimension. And if I play around long enough, it will look just like the one in the slide. Notice I double click that and it shows that in the block diagram there's a corresponding element that's been added. Anyway, we have this Boolean added. Next we need a couple of labels. Up at the top we're going to say A, oops, I say A. Double click, A plus B. So if the switch is in that position, we'll see A plus B. If the switch is in the down position, we want to see A minus B. I just double clicked and I can begin typing a new label A minus B. I want to align those guys, easy enough. Select the two labels, choose the align option, align their centers. So once we align those and we're delighted with where they're located and how it physically looks, we can then add the numeric output. Let's go back to numeric. Let's look for the numeric indicator. Drag and drop that here. Now we need to do a little wiring under the hood. Moving the functions palette, double clicking that again on the front panel. Notice it with the big black box on the block diagram. Okay, so that's our numeric indicator. Let's change that to say result. Matches the example handout. So what do we need to do here? We need to add some more stuff under the hood. Let's do both the add and the subtract. Right here. Could we have just taken the previous program and edited it? Sure, we could have. But it's good practice to restart from scratch, I guess. And let's just wire in the plus and the minus. Whoops, it's not happy about something. Control B cleans up that wire. It's going to say something about it's not terminated. Okay, basically that said you goofed up, you didn't quite make it where you wanted to. Let's try that again. Double click on the connection point and there we are. So okay, now we need a selector. Where was that guy? That's going to be under, let's take a look. It is under not comparison, not conditional. Looking. Numeric? No. Oh, this is the point where we look at the search function. Don't know if you noticed, but I just clicked search. Let's go through that again in slow motion. Bring up the functions palette. Let's pin that guy. Pin down the functions palette. Right up here we have the option to search. So let's click on search. And I believe it's called a select. Whoops. A select type instruction. Is that it? That doesn't look right. Yes, this is the instruction. We want this guy right here. Then what we're going to have is the output of this switch, which is either on or off, 0 or 1, true or false. And then we can tie this to here. Then we can tie this to here. The way this selector works is if that middle line, the green line, is a 0 or a 1, it's going to select that the output will be either the upper input or the lower input. That is, basically, we're selecting either the upper or the lower input to become or be sent to the output. Let's do this then, tie that output to our result. Let's see, will this be correct? Let's take a closer look at this. Okay, so if we take a closer look at that select instruction, we see that at the top it says true, at the bottom it says false, and at the left it says question mark. That means, coming in the center lead on the left, that green line, either that's going to be a true or a false, coming from that Boolean switch. If coming from the switch it's a true, then the top input is routed to the output. If that center left Boolean input is false, then the lower input gets routed to the output. So does that logic work for us? Looking at the switch again, up position is A plus B. That's going to be true. A plus B, true. So what gets routed to the output in the case of a true? It's going to be the sum, so that is correct. If the switch is in the downward position, that's A minus B. We then want the difference to be routed to the result or to the output of that select switch. So this should work. Let's go ahead and save it just for the fun of it. Let's say let's save it. file. Let's save as, we'll call this guy example 2. It's now saved. Let's go ahead and do a continuous run. So changing some numbers here, 3 and 7. So A minus B is the current position of our switch. A minus B, 3 minus 7 is -4. So that's displayed. Let's change the position of our switch. We do that simply by clicking on it. Notice that the output changes. 3 plus 7 is 10. 3 minus 7 is -4. Does it work with larger numbers? 333, 777. Beautiful. There's the difference, and there's the sum. Difference, sum, difference, sum. And do this until you want to stop. And that is the finish of example 2.